Live for the next hour tonight.
The high-flying student shot dead in front of his twin brother.
There's a hole in the family. It can't be filled.
They say that the Lord never gives you more load than you can carry. The load He's put on my shoulder is much too heavy. I cannot carry that one.
A young woman house-sitting her grandfather's farm, attacked by a terrifying gang.
Where's the key to the safe?
I just thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to die.
And as the Prime Minister announces new proposals to block internet pornography, a rare insight into how detectives catch online paedophiles.
We're able to pick out certain clues to where the image was taken, who the child is within the image, and who the offender is.
This is Crimewatch. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We're live for the next hour with this month's latest crime news and appeals. Let's just have a look at what else we have for you tonight. Former policeman Martin Bayfield is here again with more wanted faces and CCTV.
Yes, indeed. Your chance to track down some people sought urgently by police, including this man, Michael Cope. He's wanted in connection with the rape and murder of his ex-partner. He's considered dangerous, so call 999 now if you know where he is. And for the first time, you can press your red button at any time until midnight tonight to have another look at all of these faces. I've also got some incredible CCTV to show you. Can you name the men who tried to smash their way into a post office in Gravesend earlier this month?
And as you can see for the first time tonight, we'll have all the crucial details about each case just running along the bottom of the screen during the programme, together with all our contact details, so you can get in touch and help to solve crime. Matthew also has the latest in his series looking at how cases are cracked.
Yes, tonight it's the really sad story of how the former EastEnders actress Gemma McCuskey came to be murdered. The truth of who was responsible shocked everyone.
I've been a Metropolitan Police officer for nearly 29 years and been investigating murders for 10 years. And in all that time, I can genuinely and honestly say I've not come across anything quite as disturbing as this.
We're all going to miss Gemma. She was a good girl, a good East End girl she was.
But we begin with 19-year-old Joseph Burke Monerville. He and his identical twin, Jonathan, were decent, hard-working young men. In fact, they had just started university. They moved back to the UK last summer after finishing boarding school in their parents' native Nigeria. They had never been apart, but now Jonathan has to face life without his brother and best friend after Joseph was brutally murdered right in front of him.
He was one of the best people ever met in my life. Was fun, loving, caring, hardworking. Like, he knew the time to work, the time to play, and he knew how to put all of them together. And he was just a perfect person. The best person I've ever known in my life. Just perfect.
They've teased one another from day one. Jonathan said to me, even when we are 90, we'll still tease one another. Our grandchildren will come, our wives, and we'll sit together and play together and be happy. And that was the last time.
They say that the Lord never gives you more load than you can carry. But I think at this particular time, the load He's put on my shoulder is much too heavy. I cannot carry that one.
Identical twins Joseph and Jonathan Burke Monerville were inseparable. As well as sharing similar hobbies, both of them were first-year forensic science students at London Metropolitan University.
It was like having a permanent partner. If I want to do anything, I know I've got someone that I can do it with. We were able to like communicate with each other on different subjects. If we were in the class and we were taught something, maybe I don't understand it, he understood it. Maybe he didn't understand it, I understood it.
Drop that one for yourself and give me that one.
We did everything together, everything.
Oh, thank you, Mom. Both myself, my wife, and the rest of the family, we were very proud of them. In Africa, education is like a competition. And when they realized that, they got into it. Because they did not want to fail in what we wanted for them. Plus, they realized that the better you do, the more you can achieve.
The twins had spent much of Saturday, February the 16th, at the family home in North London.
What's going on?
Mum, washing's all done.
Yes?
Dishes all done.
Good.
Jim?
What about your assignment?
Later, they went to meet their older brother David at the gym.
They have always gone to gym together, so I had no reason to tell them not to go on that day.
The gym.
And I told them before they leave, they have to clean the house. And so they cleaned their house. They left and they said, I'll see you later, Mom.
I think that was the best gym session we had together. It was just the three of us, so we were playing, we were laughing with each other.
Mr. Cardi,
On their way home, the three brothers stopped off at a nearby convenience store. CCTV shows them parking on Hindley Road.
They looked very intimidating. The way they were dressed, they covered their faces, they had their hoods up. So I'm not gonna lie, I was really scared. Really scared.
You Pembe? These boys aren't from around here. These boys have come from Nigeria. What do you reckon?
Light them up, innit?
I didn't really see the first shot. I just heard the shot. I heard another shot. And I heard David scream. Then I heard the third shot. But I didn't know what had happened. But that shot grazed my arm. At the moment, at the time, I didn't know. He was not in a good state, and he just was bleeding all over. Blood was coming out of his mouth, then blood started coming out of his nose, coming out of his ears, so it was terrible. Even talking about it, as I remember it, it hurts.
The gunman and his accomplice ran into the nearby Pembury estate. They crossed Pembury Road before heading towards Hackney Downs. But where did they go next?
Drive! 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 Drive faster, man! Drive faster!
I'm trying, all right? It's okay.
Joseph, it's gonna be okay.
Bleeding, all right?
Joseph, it's gonna be okay. Joseph, drive faster, man! Drive faster!
Jonathan sustained only minor injuries, while older brother David was shot in his left arm. But Joseph had been hit in the head by a single bullet.
David went straight and turned at Clapton Square, and we saw a police car. He came to help us. The only thing I could do was pray. That's all I could do.
Joseph was taken for treatment at the Royal London Hospital.
Doctor and the nurse came in. You have to brace yourself. I said, what do you mean? I don't understand that English. You need to explain it to me. I don't understand what you mean by brace yourself. What are you telling me? I just looked, and I know.
Jonathan was pretty brave. Pretty brave. I don't think he had felt the true pain then. No. He's been suffering since then. We've all been suffering.
There's a hole in the family. A big hole. It can't be filled.
It's like he's gone on a journey. Because there was no reason for this. No reason.
People got us confused a lot. But we were different people. As much as we were alike, we were different people. He was just a better person.
A decent, law-abiding, hard-working young man. I'm joined now by Detective Chief Inspector Sheila Stewart. This is very, very distressing, this case. It really is appalling. You do, in fact, have CCTV of the actual killing itself for obvious reasons. We're not going to show that, but we do need to look at the cold, hard facts. Take us through what you know, Sheila.
This was just after 8 p.m. in Hackney on a Saturday night on the 16th of February this year. We see our two male suspects come into Clarence Road and they seem to be looking for someone or something. They pass several people in the road and I'm looking for those individuals to come forward. They approach the car and the first male speaks to Joseph. Moments before, he steps back, raises his arm and fires 3 shots into the car, targeting 3 passengers.
Now, you do have, I mean, really a pretty good description of these men. Give us the description.
The gunman is male, he's black, he's about 18 to 22 years old, and he was wearing a black hooded top and had something over a scarf over his face. The second male was taller. He was about the same age, but he was lighter skinned, possibly Turkish or of mixed race. Again, wearing a black hooded top and a face covering.
Witnesses here, of course, crucial. Can you take us through the route that these guys took after they perpetrated the crime?
Certainly. They ran off down Hindley Road into Pembury Estate, crossing Pembury Road and making their way up to Downs Park Road. We last see them going into Hackney Downs. The weapon, a 9mm black self-loading pistol, is still outstanding. So I need to know where these two have gone from there.
That's for sure. You mentioned you don't have the gun. You see, I'm pretty sure there'll be people watching tonight who can tell you things that are really important to solving this case.
Certainly.
They might be terrified looking at this, thinking, I just can't come forward. I'm petrified. What would you say to them?
We have procedures within the criminal justice system to protect those people, to protect the witnesses, and to deal with those fears. Joseph was shot in front of family and friends, and if these 2 individuals aren't caught, then no one is safe from this level of violence.
That's for sure. Sheila, thank you very much. I should tell you there is a £20,000 reward for information leading to the prosecution of the people who did this terrible thing. No doubt there are people watching tonight who know the 2 gunmen. Think of Joseph, think of Jonathan, think of the family. I would urge you to call now. 0500 600 600 is the number. Martin.
Time for some wanted faces now, starting with an urgent appeal to find this man, Michael Cope, The 28-year-old is sought by officers in connection with the rape and murder of his ex-partner, 25-year-old mum of two, Lindsay Ashton, whose badly beaten body was found at her home in Salford just over 3 weeks ago. This CCTV shows Cope buying food and drink at a shop in Hindley in Wigan at about 1:25 p.m. on Sunday, the 14th of July. Cope is from Manchester, and police think he may well be sleeping rough. There's a £25,000 reward for information which leads to his arrest. He's considered to be extremely dangerous, so if you see him or know where he is, call 999 straight away. Next is convicted sex offender Michael McCartney. The 78-year-old went on the run after being found guilty of 11 sexual assaults, including 2 against children. He was sentenced in his absence to 8 years in prison and was given an indefinite sexual offences prevention order. He has links to Letchworth in Hertfordshire and to Cyprus and Spain. Third tonight is Adnan Jagirdar. He also uses a variety of aliases, including the names Mohammed Akram and Adnanul Haq. Detectives want to speak to the 37-year-old in connection with a massive drugs conspiracy which would have seen 150 kilos of heroin worth more than £16 million imported into the UK from Iran. Jagirdar, who has links to Ilford in Essex and Newham in London, has a half-inch scar on his right forearm. And finally, for now, is Matthew Attenborough. But he uses a number of other names, including Daniel Taylor, Saul White and Stephen Murphy. Officers from across the country want to speak to him in relation to a series of frauds where gay men were befriended online and conned out of thousands of pounds. Attenborough, who is 32, also likes to pretend he's a police officer. He's originally from Coventry but moves around the country. All of tonight's faces are on the website, and you can also see them again by pressing your red button. If you know where they are, call and text the numbers on screen. Texts will be charged at your standard message rate.
Now it's time for a roundup of this month's latest crime news.
In 2010, we ran a special appeal on Crimewatch on the 25th anniversary of the murder of PC Keith Blakelock, who was killed during riots on the Broadwater Farm estate in Tottenham. We filmed a reconstruction and featured a rare interview with his widow, Elizabeth. Well, yesterday, 44-year-old Nicholas Jacobs of Hackney in London appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court, where he was charged with the PC's murder.
Next, a case from our last programme, the murder of 82-year-old grandfather Mohammed Salim, who was fatally stabbed as he made his way home from his mosque in Birmingham in April. Well, today, 25-year-old Pavlo Lapshin from Ukraine appeared by video link at the Old Bailey, charged with his murder. He was also charged with terrorism offences in connection with explosions near mosques in Walsall, Tipton and Wolverhampton.
Another update from our last programme following the disappearance of 17-year-old Georgia Williams. Police received some significant information from a Crimewatch viewer, which led them to discover Georgia's body near Wrexham in North Wales. 22-year-old Jamie Reynolds from Wellington in Shropshire has been charged with her murder.
Now, last year we asked for your help with an arson attack which killed 4 siblings at their home in Freckleton in Lancashire. Jordan, twin girls Holly and Ella, and older brother Reese all died in the fire in the bungalow where they lived with their mother, Michelle Smith.
A lot of people have said that I've been strong through all of this, but inside I am just an absolute mess. It's just killing me, really, inside.
Well, yesterday, 19-year-old Dyson Allen was convicted of 4 counts of manslaughter. He'll be sentenced in September.
Next, news on another arson. That fire in 2011 killed 3 people in Helensburgh, west of Glasgow. Our appeal included this crucial CCTV of a man seen in the area at the time of the fire. Mum Angela was the only surviving member of the Sharkey family. Her husband, Tommy Sr., and children Bridget and Tommy Jr. all died.
Everything that I loved has gone. Nothing's going to change it.
Well, Crimewatch viewers helped identify the figure in the CCTV by his distinctive walk as that of Robert Jennings. 50-year-old Jennings and 38-year-old Scott Snowden were yesterday convicted of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder.
Finally, news in today on the murder of 76-year-old widower Llewellyn Thomas, who was attacked at his Cambridgeshire home in 2011. The jury in the case took just 1 hour to find 26-year-old Frankie Parker and his uncle, Gary Smith, 21, guilty of the murder. The pair are due to be sentenced tomorrow.
Mark Bridger's conviction for the murder of 5-year-old April Jones on the day of our last programme once again brought the big problem of online child abuse into the headlines. Lots of us agree that more needs to be done. Well, last week, the parents of April Jones and Tia Sharp met with the Prime Minister to discuss his new proposals for internet providers to block all pornography unless households choose to receive it. But what is being done about the root causes and the existing victims and paedophiles who exploit them? Well, Martin has been to see the work of 2 agencies on the front line in the fight against online child abuse.
2 unconnected murders with 1 common thread. During the trials of the men who killed April Jones and Tia Sharp, it was revealed in the days before they committed their crimes they had both been searching the internet for indecent images of children. But what many of us can't understand is why it's apparently so easy for anyone to gain access to images of child abuse in the first place. There are 2 agencies in the UK whose job it is to shut down these websites, to catch the people running them and the people viewing them. Now, naturally, the work of these organisations is covert, but I've been given rare access to the people in charge of bringing the paedophiles to justice. Funded by many of the big service providers and search engines, the Internet Watch Foundation, based in Cambridge, works to remove illegal websites. But with an estimated 1 million unique images of child abuse online, their task is enormous. Fred, in light of really high-profile cases like April Jones, have you seen a change in how the public are reporting indecent images through to the Internet Watch Foundation?
Yes, definitely. What we have seen is usually in a 3-month period, we get around 10,000 reports from members of the public, but we've seen a 42% increase in the last 3 months on that figure, and we think that's not only due to the Tia Sharp and April Jones murders, but to the high-profile nature of the Jimmy Savile inquiry and how that's raised the awareness of child sexual abuse.
Sally is an analyst who has the difficult task of examining images and then removing websites containing the illegal material. The sensitive nature of the work means her identity has been protected.
Once I've ascertained whether it is in fact a child, I'd then categorise it by age and the severity of the image. My next stage would be to figure out the location of where it's being hosted so we can then try to take action to get it removed at source. We can be on the phone to our contacts and the content is taken down while we're on the phone. It could be a matter of seconds.
But once a website has been removed, how are those behind the images caught? Well, that job falls to the Child Exploitation and Online Protection Centre, or CEOP, a group of highly specialised investigators. James, this is a typical image that you would analyse for obvious reasons. We can't let the viewers see this. But for you, this is more than an image, this is a crime scene. How do you analyse this and extract the vital information and evidence that you need?
We look at the minute detail which is contained within the image and the scientific detail that was used to put the image together. And looking at them as a whole, we're able to pick out certain clues to where the image was taken, who the child is within the image, and who the offender is. And we can see here that this is a British kitchen. But what is it that tells us it's a British kitchen? And for me, it's the clues in the background. It's the 3-point plug there that you see, and there's other clues that I'm looking for. Using specialist software, I can pinpoint some of the things that will lead me to the identity of where it was taken.
It's this painstaking work that can lead officers straight to the doors of paedophiles. In January last year, a single report was made to the IWF about photographs of children that had been uploaded to an image hosting website.
There were some images of a child that weren't specifically illegal when you viewed them on their own, but there was enough to be worried that this child was being abused.
The information was passed on to CEOP, who began an investigation into where the photographs were taken.
Analysing the images, we came down to 3 locations in the UK which that child could possibly reside, was visiting, or the offender was residing or visiting.
Investigators knew they had to find the people responsible before they committed further crimes. The images were quickly tracked to a street in the Lincolnshire area, and with the help of local officers, it was soon narrowed to a single address.
The police officer stood outside the address and was describing the address to us in the office. Based on what the police officer said and what we were relaying back to them, the police officer was certain that he was looking at the crime scene. When the police officer knocked on the door, a male answered the door who identified himself as David Miller.
62-year-old Mellor was arrested and later admitted 18 offences involving the taking and distributing of indecent images of children. He was jailed for 6 years.
He's obviously been brought to justice, but you can see that how quickly we deal with cases and the risk that these people pose to society.
The destruction caused by these crimes is complex and far-reaching. This is Anne. We've changed her name and identity. She and her 2 children had no idea her husband was a paedophile until police called at her house one morning.
2 uniformed officers went upstairs to bring down my husband, and we were questioned about email addresses, things where I had no idea what was going on at all. At one point, the police officer said, "I've got no option but to place you both under arrest." At which point my husband did then say, "It's all me, it's nothing to do with my wife."
He was convicted of a number of offences against children, including downloading and distributing indecent images. He's serving a lengthy jail sentence, and Anne and her children no longer have any contact with him.
Certainly for me and my children, we feel safer as well knowing he's in prison. It's still a crime that's very hidden and not talked about. So somebody needs to be doing this work. It is really important.
We're certainly here to make a difference. If we can stop a child from being further abused, then my job is done.
Well, Peter Davis is the Chief Executive of CEOP. He joins us now. Your line of work's been getting a lot of publicity. It's been in the headlines all week. What do you make of the Prime Minister's suggestions? Is he on the right track, or is it tinkering around the edges?
I certainly don't believe it's tinkering around the edges. I do believe it's on the right track, both in terms of blocking children's access to pornography, but actually particularly in our world, which is tackling the illegal criminal child abuse imagery online. So there was a lot of good content in there, a lot of opportunities that we're going to make the most of.
Yes, you see, there are 2 separate issues there, because I think any family in Britain, most families in Britain would think, you know, protecting our children and indeed protecting ourselves from these horrific images are a good thing.
Absolutely.
However, that is not tackling the main problem, which is the people who produce those images and the underfunding of organisations like yours who need to go in there with full firepower. What would you say to that?
Well, the point is this is a massive issue. It's not just confined to the UK, and it's easy to argue for more funding, but here's the thing. One agency, even one as good as CEOP, and you can see the quality of my colleagues like James there, is not going to be big enough to tackle this. It's a team effort. Anything to do with child protection takes a lot of teamwork. Government, different agencies, the whole of UK law enforcement and the industry as well. It's not just about CEOP's budget. That's a minor part of a big picture.
And nobody's going to argue with the great work that your colleagues do. Indeed, I've been to CEOP's myself and I've seen it. It's incredible and it's vital work. However, the people who want to look at these images are not typing searches surely into big search engines. They're sharing them with each other. They call it peer-to-peer sharing of these revolting images.
People are offending in different ways. Some people are using search engines, and sometimes the search engines can link them into peer-to-peer networks. So even if you don't get the result back from your search engine, it can still take you to one of these peer-to-peer networks where there is harm. There are other forms of harm on the internet as well. It's a very complex picture. We need to work effectively against every single manifestation of this appalling type of crime.
OK, Peter, thank you very much. I should say that even as we ran Martin's report tonight, we started getting a lot of calls, people on Twitter saying to us, I've seen these images, I want to help, how do I get in touch? I'm about to tell you how to do that, in fact. If you want to get in touch, you can get in touch with us here on the studio. 0500 600 600 is the number to do that. If you've stumbled across any of these revolting sites, then do also get in touch with www.iwf.org.uk. If you suspect a child may be in danger of abuse, then you can contact, of course, your local police force, or you can report it to Peter and his colleagues at CEOP themselves. Details on how to do that are on their website. And indeed, if you've been the victim of crime, there is always the victim support line. You can call them on 0845 30 30 900.
Right, time for some crimes caught on camera now, starting with a violent attack on a shopkeeper which happened in Waltham Forest in London in January. It's a Sunday evening inside a convenience store, and this guy in a hoodie is having an argument with the shopkeeper. He leaves, but a minute later he's back and he's brought his friends with him. The argument escalates. The first guy climbs on the counter as his friend grabs some wine and uses it to threaten the shopkeeper. The man on the counter then leans over and grabs a bottle of spirits. Next, without warning, the one in the hat smashes the wine bottle over the shopkeeper's head before strolling out. A shocking attack. We need names for these two tonight. It's just after 11 p.m. on a Saturday night in March in the Albert Dock area of Liverpool. A couple of lads who are part of a group which had just been kicked out of a nearby pub for causing trouble are wandering around the quayside. As they cross a bridge, the one in a dark jacket spots a man and a woman standing down the street who had been part of the group they'd been harassing in the bar. He heads towards them. And when he reaches the couple, he launches himself at the man, hitting him from behind, the single punch knocking the victim to the floor and fracturing his jaw. The attacker then runs off back along the quayside. It was a violent and unprovoked assault. Tell us, who is this man? A Monday afternoon earlier this month at a travel agent's in Caterham in Surrey. A man wearing a grey top and carrying a large bag walks into the shop. He immediately pulls out what looks like a handgun and orders the frightened staff and customers into a back office. He demands one of the employees opens up the bureau de change, and she is forced to hand over cash. The robber eventually leaves, slipping the gun back into his bag as he does. Now, I'm sure he thought the mask would stop people recognizing him, but it only works if you keep it on your face. This man threatened a shop full of people with a gun. It's time to book him a holiday at Her Majesty's pleasure. Name, please. Plenty more CCTV still to come, and you can see it all again on the Crimewatch website. Call 0500 600 600 if you can help, or text 63399, type crime, leave a space, and then your message.
And also still to come tonight, the terrifying armed raid at a rural farmhouse in Surrey in the early hours of the morning.
Move! Move! Come on! Go, go!
I just wanted it to be over. And I thought, if you're not going to go soon, then please just kill me.
And Matthew reveals how a crucial bit of CCTV exposed the truth about what happened to former EastEnders actress Gemma McCluskey.
We seized the car and we had that forensically examined. What came back was that Gemma's blood was in the boot of the car. This was huge for us. We knew we had the right person.
But before that, let's see what's already come in on the phones, Matthew.
It is really busy. It's worth just saying you can already see the information from all of your calls at the bottom of the screen. Well, let's get the latest on the murder that we saw at the top of the programme, Joseph Burke Monaville in North London. Sheila Stewart is back here with me. And Sheila, what has come in?
There's been numerous calls, very helpful, to specifically naming individuals who we need to research and look at now. There's a lot of calls about information known locally in the area, and I would really like to speak to someone who knows these individuals personally. They were last seen in the Hackney Downs, and I want to know where they went next.
OK, well, if you know anything, please call in. Martin.
We start these wanted faces with 19-year-old Trey Williamson. Detectives want to speak to him about the murder of Kadar Hussein, who died after being shot in Penge in London in May. There's a £10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Williamson, who goes by the street name Rumbles. He's also considered to be dangerous, so if you do see him, call the police straight away. Next is Alexei Shaiti, although he's previously been known as Georgios Solos. Police need to trace him in connection with the death of Ricky Burton, who was killed in a hit-and-run incident on the A10 in Hertfordshire in June 2010. Shaiti, who is Albanian, was identified as the driver of the car but gave false details and subsequently disappeared. 34-year-old Shaiti himself suffered serious injuries in the crash and is likely to have severe facial scarring. He's known to have links to Hertfordshire, Loughborough and North London. 7 and 8 tonight are Thomas Tooth and James Fahy. Officers want to speak to them in connection with an attempted burglary at a bank in Rotherham, during which thieves tried to get into a cash machine by drilling through the wall of the next-door building. The pair, who police believe may well be together, have links to Manchester, Amsterdam and Alicante in Spain. Fahy sometimes put on an Irish accent and often goes by the nickname Irish James. Call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of tonight's faces. They're all online, and you can have another look by pressing the red button on your remote.
Now, in the early hours of a Wednesday morning back in May, 24-year-old Emily Fuller was sound asleep at her grandfather's home in Waldingham in rural Surrey. She was all on her own, keeping an eye on the old farmhouse whilst her grandfather was overseas. What happened next is really the stuff of nightmares.
I have nights where I wake up panicking and I've dreamt the whole thing again, over and over in my head.
Shut up! I'm hurting you. I'm gonna hurt.
And I just thought that they were going to kill me. You see it in the films and things. This is it. This is how I'm going to die. My granddad went on holiday, so I just said to him that I'll be around to house sit and look after the dog. I'd been at work all day and then got back here and came straight in, got changed and took the dog out. Just a normal day, really. I turned all the lights off as I went, except the hall light. I always leave the hall light on in case I need to come down in the night. I just went upstairs. I didn't check windows, doors, anything. You don't really think about it. You just, you presume everything's all right and just go to bed.
Where's the key to the safe? Where's the key to the safe? Go. Where's the office? Where's the office? Key to the safe. Where's the key to the safe? You said it wasn't in the office. You said it was it.
And he had a knife to my throat, screaming at me to tell me where the money was.
I'll do it.
I didn't even know there was a safe in the house. So I was just trying to think, if there was a key, where would my granddad, where would it be? All I kept thinking was that they were going to kill me. You see it in the films and things, and I just thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to die.
Cover her!
One of them threw one of my granddad's animal skins over my head so that I obviously couldn't see what they were doing. I don't know how long I was sat there for, but it's definitely about an hour. And I just wanted it to be over. And I thought, if you're not going to go soon, then please just kill me. And then I heard no more voices after that, just the drilling noise. Just clicked saying what they were going to do. They were going to try and drill into the safe.
Leave it! Let's not leave it!
I didn't hear them leave, I didn't hear any doors open or close, I didn't hear any footsteps. Just went from that drilling noise to silence. I sat there for about 15 minutes, just waiting, just to make sure that they had gone and I was safe to try and get up. I pulled my arms up from behind my back, up over, up to my head. At the time, obviously, it didn't hurt, but I had actually dislocated my shoulder doing it. I think with the adrenaline, and I just wanted to get out of there. So I just pulled my hands up, and I just remember as I was walking with the tape on, I could just feel it rubbing into my skin, feeling like rope burns into my ankles, and managed to get my arms out enough to then be able to free my right hand to then cut the tape off from around my feet and pull the tape off my mouth. And I was just really strangely calm for what had happened. I was really calm, just making sure that I glanced to see the dog was all right, and grabbed my work boots and walked out. I got in the car, and then that was when sort of panic sort of did start to hit. I'm now petrified of falling asleep because that was the first thing I saw when I woke up, and now I try and keep myself awake so that I don't have to see that again and to go through that again. I just relive it every day.
Well, joining me now is Detective Inspector Anthony Archibald from Surrey Police. Really terrifying for Emily, as she says. She relives it every night if she closes her eyes. What was actually taken in this attack?
Oh, yeah, an absolute nightmare for Emily. She was subjected to that horrifying ordeal for nearly an hour. The house itself is like an old farmhouse. There's very little there of any value and certainly no cash lying around. And we saw in the film how the men tried to drill into the safe. They failed to get anything, they failed to do that. One of the things they did take, though, was this hunting knife. Now, this has a picture of a lion on the handle, and it's made by one company in South Africa, so it'd be very rare over here. So we're very interested to hear from anyone who has seen that knife anywhere. Also, they took bottles of champagne, whiskey and some cigars. So if anyone has a friend or a partner that's returned in the early hours with items like that, then we're very keen to hear from them.
OK, that could be important. What was Emily? She's been very brave. What has she been able to tell you about the attackers?
She describes 5 to 6 black males who came into the house. One was wearing a balaclava, another one had a scarf around his face. They had London accents. One had white Vans trainers on, but most notably, one of them was referred to by the others as the name or nickname of Littles. Right. So if the name Littles means anything to anyone, then we'd really like to hear from them as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's distinctive. Just briefly, we've got this little clip of a reconstruction of somebody on a motorbike. Tell us quickly why it's important.
The days leading up to the attack, this motorbike was seen a few times riding near to the address, and it appeared to be paying particular attention to it. Now, the motorbike was completely black, and the description of the rider was a full-face black helmet, a green camouflage jacket and jeans, and we're really interested in identifying that rider because they may hold some vital information. OK,
thanks very much, Anthony. Really a dreadful ordeal for this young woman. If you want to help in any way, do call us now. You know the number, it's 0500 600 600. Calls are free from most landlines. Some networks, some mobile operators are going to charge for the calls. If you prefer, you can speak anonymously to Crime Stoppers. They're on 0800 555 111. Martin.
Time now for more CCTV, starting with a nasty attempted robbery in Kent. 2 masked men burst into a post office in Gravesend on a Tuesday afternoon earlier this month. They rush straight to the front of the shop and start demanding money. A few moments later, a third man comes in and stands guard at the door. One of the men at the front of the shop grabs a female member of staff round the throat and starts attacking her with a hammer. He forces her behind the till, pushing her so hard she falls and hits her head. Back at the post office counter, his mate is trying and failing to smash through the security screen using a sledgehammer. The pair then take a different approach, attempting to break through the office door where the other terrified woman is trapped inside. They can't get in that way either, so one of them tries the till, ripping it open whilst the first shop assistant lies injured at his feet. He gives up on that too and lets it drop straight onto the woman before having one last go at the door. They eventually left with nothing, but both their victims have been left hugely traumatized by the attack. Unmask these violent would-be robbers tonight. It's a Monday morning in April in Edgware in London. An employee of a money exchange company is walking the short distance from his office to the bank to cash the weekend's takings. As he enters the foyer, a man rushes in after him. The robber immediately grabs the bag containing the money, snapping the strap in the process. He then sprints off, followed by his dazed victim, running across the road back the way he came. This man got away with tens of thousands of pounds in cash. Now we need you to be on the money. Name, please. This is the Britannia Building Society in Newport in Shropshire on a Saturday morning last month. A man with a shaved head wearing a black top, jeans and a rather fetching pair of shades walks in. He approaches the counter where he pulls out an orange carrier bag and what looks like a handgun. He orders the terrified staff to fill the bag with cash before he leaves, tucking the gun into the waistband of his jeans as he does. Definitely an unauthorized cash withdrawal. Take a good look at this shady character and tell us, who is he? All Tonight's CCTV is online, and if you recognise anyone, please call and text the numbers on screen.
This is 29-year-old Gemma McCluskey. You may well recognise her. She played the part of Kerry Skinner in EastEnders. Well, in March of last year, several years after she left the soap, she was murdered. Her dismembered body dumped in an East London canal. Matthew looks now at how detectives caught her killer.
Gemma McCluskey became known as an EastEnders actress, but she'll also be remembered for the horrific way she died.
Gemma was an EastEnder herself from Shoreditch. After leaving the soap, she settled back into normal life, working in a local pub. But in March last year, she suddenly disappeared.
At the time, she was living with her older brother, Tony. On Saturday the 3rd of March, Tony, their other brother, Danny, and a friend went into an East London police station to report Gemma missing.
It was assessed as a low risk. Gemma, although she'd not been missing before, she's an adult. And, there was no other information at that time that suggested that there was anything untoward.
I got a phone call on the Saturday from my son Tony to say he hadn't seen Gemma for a couple of days. I said, well, it's nothing to worry about, Tony. She's probably gone away for a couple of days. I didn't have an inkling that anything could happen to Gemma.
Police made routine missing person inquiries, but 2 days later, there was still no sign of her.
Then everyone started to get worried then. When we realised something was really wrong.
There was an appeal at a local public house, of which Tony helpfully went along to and was pictured in the Sun newspaper appealing for information about the whereabouts of his sister. And Tony was doing everything he could to try and help the police with the investigation.
The following day, the investigation into Gemma's disappearance took a dramatic turn.
It's him.
Tony received a number of sinister phone calls.
Hello?
If you want to see your sister again, you'll get the money.
Well, how do I know you've got her?
Somebody was purporting to have kidnapped Gemma and were asking for a huge ransom for her return.
If you touch my sister, if you lay one hand on...
The review of her status immediately went from being a low priority to a high priority.
Ugh.
Police traced the blackmail calls to this man, 19-year-old Sam Dunn from Kent. It was a sick hoax. In April this year, Dunn was jailed for 6 months for making malicious phone calls. Then, a moment that would change everything. Within hours of those blackmail calls, a suitcase was found in a nearby canal. Inside, a female torso. It was Gemma. The missing person inquiry was now a murder investigation. The canal was searched, and police decided to re-interview her brother.
We'd had a little bit of an argument, but
Tony was the last person who'd seen Gemma alive. His information was crucial to the investigation.
What was the last time you remember actually seeing her?
It was between 2:30 and 3 o'clock.
Tony was dealt with as a significant witness. How we treat those people is to interview them on tape, but they are witnesses. They're not suspects, and they're not cautioned.
What were you thinking?
Well, I just started getting my own thought, well, where is she, you know what I mean?
Other witnesses were being interviewed at the same time. Detectives soon realised Tony's account didn't add up.
It was just very small things that made us think, well, hold on, that just doesn't seem right.
Police decided to arrest him. He was now a murder suspect.
Tony, did you kill Gemma?
No comment.
Tell me about what you know about the disappearance of Gemma.
No comment.
Surely you want to bring to justice the people responsible.
No comment.
It's not infrequent that people don't want to speak to the police. But given that it was his sister, it was bizarre that he had that choice. And so the feeling within the team was, you know, this is our guy.
10 days after his sister disappeared, he was charged with murder.
Gov.
With Tony McCluskey in custody, police painstakingly began to build their case. They found pictures of Gemma on the morning she vanished and driving her car back home to the flat. Forensic officers searched the property. Blood and human tissue matched Gemma's DNA. Detectives also checked phone records. The day after she'd gone missing, Tony had called a cab company. CCTV footage shows him with a heavy bag. Police believe it contained his sister's torso.
We seized the car that the minicab driver had used, and we had that forensically examined. What came back was that Gemma's blood was in the boot of the car.
After a 2-minute journey to the canal, Tony's then seen returning to the flat without the bag.
This was huge for us. We knew we had the right person.
Tony! After months of work, police had proof of what had happened to Gemma. That morning, she'd rowed with her brother about his heavy cannabis use.
Get out of my house.
He'd left the bathroom taps running and the sink had overflowed.
I want you out.
Yes, you're going to make me go, you?
Yes.
Yeah? Well, go on in!
When she returned to the flat that afternoon, the row escalated.
You've got to go!
I've been a Metropolitan Police officer for nearly 29 years and been investigating murders for 10 years. And in all that time, I can genuinely and honestly say I've not come across anything quite as disturbing as this. Certainly, I've never come across a brother killing a sister. He was clearly evil in what he has done. How can any of us comprehend how somebody could not only kill their own sister, but having then killed her, to then dismember her body? I mean, it really is beyond belief that somebody could do such a sick thing.
Tony dumped her body parts in the canal. Her legs and arms were found over several days, but it took 6 months for her head to be recovered.
So that was very hard, them few months, not knowing. Because I said straight away, there's no way she's getting buried if she's not complete. So we determined to find the last part of her.
When they did recover her, injuries showed she died from being hit at least twice with a blunt object.
He deserves every day he spends in prison. He really does. The way I looked at it straight away, I'd lost 2 children. You know, my son and daughter. Like I said, I've lost both of them.
Tony clearly thought, you know, he had got away with it. He thought he'd covered his tracks. He's now serving a lifetime in prison for his evilness and for the arrogance that he thought that he could get away with cold-bloodedly killing his sister.
We're all going to miss Gemma. You know, she was the life and soul of everything. She was a good girl, a good East End girl she was.
Matthew, a family devastated.
Yeah, terrible, and the judge talked about that. He also contrasted Gemma, a young woman with a huge zest for life, dearly loved, with McCluskey, hopelessly addicted to skunk cannabis, resentful of his sister's popularity. So brother and sister, polar opposites as people.
And his elaborate cover-up.
Yes, he lied, he implicated others, he sent text messages to Gemma's phone pretending he thought she was still alive. And as the prosecution said, he thought he got incredibly lucky when he got those blackmail calls, because that took police in completely the wrong direction. But bit by bit, meticulously, detectives worked through those blind alleys, those diversions, found the evidence that dragged them back to one person, Tony McCluskey.
And that CCTV was pivotal.
It was crucial because when they found that footage from the cab company, they showed it to the family. Now, Gemma's other brother had refused to believe up to that point that Tony had anything to do with this. Then he saw that, then he knew it was him. It was the shortest bits of CCTV, the shortest bits of evidence, but it was absolutely compelling. He got life with a minimum of 20 years.
Thanks, Matthew. Time now for a quick last update on what's been coming in on the phones. Here's Martin.
Plenty of calls coming in. You remember the first of our wanted faces, Michael Cope, wanted in connection with the murder of his ex-partner, Lindsay Ashton. Well, we've had several calls coming in, placing Cope in the Manchester and Leigh area. The police are investigating tonight. And the first of our CCTV, the attack on the shopkeeper in Waltham Forest, the wine bottle over the top of his head. We've had a name given for one of those suspects.
Right, busy night. That's everything for now, though. Everything's on our website, too, and the wanted faces will stay on the red button until midnight tonight. The phone lines are going to stay open until midnight tomorrow. We're going to be back again tonight, of course, 10:35 after the news, with the very latest on what I think has been a pretty busy night. Viewers in Northern Ireland are going to have to wait until 11:05. From all of us here, thanks for your calls. They make a difference. Bye-bye.